Hi there, and welcome to Excellence in Credit, a series of interviews with industry leaders to help credit professionals just to deliver excellence in credit. And today it is my great pleasure to introduce James Riordan, who's General Manager of Credit Risk Brokers. So, good morning, James. Very welcome.
Morning,
And
Jackie.
I'll let you introduce yourself.
Okay. I'm James Riordan, General Manager, as you say, for Credit Risk Brokers, Head of Sales as well. Ireland's leading independent specialist broker for credit insurance and surety bonds. That's our area of expertise, and that's all we do. We don't do any general insurances at all.
Grant. So how would you explain credit insurance to somebody who knows little or nothing about it?
Um, I suppose credit insurance indemnifies sellers when trade receivables, that's debtors, are not paid for by their buyers or customers. It's essentially an insurance policy for bad debts for trade credit sales. That's probably the best way of putting it.
Absolutely. And what makes credit insurance and your broker services fit to be mentioned under excellence in credit?
Well, for a start, we don't charge for our services. The insurers pay us. So that's a
Yeah,
good point to mention. So credit insurance is not just about having claims paid or covering bad debts, which is probably the focus of a lot of people's mind when they take it out or when they go to investigate it. It's usually after a bad debt that people think about it, to be honest. It does actually, I suppose it's known for enhancing your credit function in many ways. With the support of an excellent specialist broker like Credit Risk Brokers, a policyholder will have independent support for the credit team, better access to information, debt collection, legal services, and things like that. There's much more to just bad debt protection in it. Also, yeah, being insured provides for an early warning system. On your debtors, there's an extensive network of insured companies throughout the network of insurers, should I say. There's an extensive network of companies that are insured, and therefore there's loads of information out there that the insurers hold that maybe an insured party wouldn't have.
that's far more up to date than 2-year-old information from the company's office or whatever, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. There's payment records information. There's management accounts because the credit insurers would tend to reach out for up to date financials, especially if you take right now we're August 2024, so we're looking at people filing within Ireland and the UK, especially December 23 accounts
Hmm.
in the coming months, and so the only access to information publicly available is maybe December 22 accounts for those that file at year end. So
Yeah.
the insurers will have probably reached out and sourced the December 23 managements or draft year ends by now, and therefore they have that information. Whereas a customer, an average punter would not have that information to hand. That's not
Yeah,
publicly
yeah, yeah.
available.
Yeah, no, certainly access to information is a key factor. So, and thanks for covering that. So, in terms of what you're seeing, what is the current position in Ireland regarding payment patterns?
Uh, I suppose you go back to COVID and there was obviously a slowdown. Things have moved on from then, but there's definitely another drop off in certain sectors for 2024. Um, I suppose some insurers have their own debt collections and legal teams to assist with recovery of monies owed to our clients. I suppose for delinquent accounts, when they try to collect the debt themselves and fail, they hand it over to these collection agencies or inside offices in the
Yeah,
insurers to try and chase it. This means that they might be too busy to chase it, and the insurer does it for it. This triggers one of the early warning systems I mentioned. I suppose in 2024, we're seeing more collections cases, large increase in disputed debts in certain sectors, a definite sign of cash tightening across construction, hospitality, those kind of sectors primarily. Retail has been an issue and on the radar since COVID as well, and obviously
sure.
since the online selling has become more popular in recent years. Um, Apparently, the global credit insurance market covers about 7 trillion US dollars of sales, right,
Right.
worldwide. So the issues that we're seeing are not just domestic. We've obviously got insured clients who deal much, not just in Ireland and UK, but much around globally.
Yeah.
So insured suppliers to Ireland, Irish companies are also on our radar. So we've got customers who are buying in from outside of Ireland. So their credit record is important to them as well,
Of
because
course, yeah.
if you take the European market, much more customers much more businesses are insured in the European market than maybe in Ireland. It's a much higher percentage. It's an older market for credit insurance. So they tend not to sell into the likes of an Ireland too easily without checking them out generally through their credit insurer.
Yeah.
So we're being asked much more now by our clients, how do they improve their credit score, their credit rating with the credit insurers, so that they get a better credit supply from their suppliers globally, who
Yeah,
generally are
yeah,
credit insurers.
and that's how it works. And has there been many claims recently, or what way is that working?
Yeah, like we're coming off a low base because of COVID, I suppose. Government interventions during COVID would have had an impact, so that the supports that were there reduced the amount of insolvencies
Yeah.
in those recent years. But if you were to say 24 to go back to 2019, 2020, so pre-COVID, insolvencies are definitely rising. We're probably only on par now with the pre-COVID years now. We're coming back up to that level. I saw something recently. PwC were recently quoted as saying that Ireland will have on average 3 corporate insolvencies a day this year. The IMF published that Ireland's economy is set to slow down. Any other things I could have pulled out for this into? Insurers are predicting a 9% increase globally in 2024, with a leveling off in 2025 of insolvencies. Ireland joined the Netherlands as one of the higher ones at the end of the scale. Ireland and Netherlands, small countries, very open economies, so maybe that's relevant. We're definitely seeing an increase in claims. There is some sectors that are feeling it more, but we have much more activity on our claims and overdue reporting side than on new business and new inquiries for credit insurance or new applications for cover. It's definitely a more focus on the claim side at the moment.
Right. Okay. And you mentioned about different sectors. Are there any sectors causing particular concern in Ireland at the
Yeah,
moment?
I touched on it, but like retail,
Yeah.
along with hospitality, I suppose, carry most of the warehouse revenue debt, which is a concern. So those two sectors would have been badly hurt during COVID. Obviously, we couldn't go out shopping, we couldn't go out eating, whatever way you want to put it. There was the bounce after COVID. Everybody wanted to go shopping and everybody wanted to go to hotels, but that's tapered off a little bit. We're more normalized. Construction is seeing staffing issues, I'd say, is probably the best way of putting it. So there's inflation issues we've seen for the last 2 years. Post-COVID, there was a shortage of certain products. So there was inflation in steel, timber. Even if you were a window supplier, you couldn't get the handles because the handles were coming from Eastern Europe or China, and you had to find a new buyer, maybe a new supplier in Portugal because it was closer to home. So government housing strategy has probably impacted the construction sector in a positive way. There's a plan for the 36 going up to 50,000 houses a year. There's a lot of talk in the media about that, I suppose. There's a shift away from commercial offices. So there's obviously people have gone back to work, but there is definitely empty office space around the country. And so I don't think there's a rush to build more high-rise office blocks. We're seeing a reasonable amount of growth in green energy and data center building and focus on that side. So our mechanical electrical guys that would have been maybe focusing on HVAC or air conditioning or whatever it might be in the office blocks 5 years ago, some of those have moved into, we need to fit out data centers or that kind of area because they have no choice but to switch over. So there is a change in some of those sectors, but I think claims at the moment is construction, retail, hospitality.
Yeah, and the great thing about the Irish is we're amazingly adaptable.
Yeah,
we change, and if something's working, and I suppose that's why we stay ahead. Now, one question for you. It says Farosol on your emails.
Yeah.
What is Farosol?
Farosol is a network of specialist brokers in credit risk primarily, right? Information services, credit insurance, those type of areas. Basically, everything's going to be connected to what we do, right? And the insurers do in our space. So it's the only global network of brokers who are also a member of FEBIS. It's an international trade body of credit agencies. It's a group of professionals, men and women with established businesses in their space. We've online meetings every 2 months. We face meetings once a year. Initially, more than that when we got together 10 years ago. The idea is that we want to assist each other with challenges in our home market, but also the global market. So I'll give you an example. I have a Irish Wicklow-based company who's been credit insured for years, and they've been selling into America from Ireland, and it's been going well. The credit insurance has helped them grow their market significantly without too much impact on the credit function. They can make a decision based on the decision from the credit insurer. They apply for a limit. The insurer says yes, they sell. Really simple stuff. It's working really well for them. But their Irish element of their sales has grown to such an extent that they've decided to open a new company in America, which meant I couldn't then arrange that insurance through the Irish business. I had to try and arrange it through the American business, right? And I'm in Ireland, so I don't have jurisdiction to do that. So what I did was I contacted one of our specialist brokers within the Farasol network, and Seth was brilliant. He was able to go to the local market. He did a submission to the local credit insurers that he would know on a personal basis. Better relationships. They took him seriously, that it was a real option for him. He gathered together the information. He did the presentation back to me, which I passed on to our client here in Ireland. They chose the insurer between us all. We made our recommendations, and they now have a credit insurance policy in Ireland and in America.
Brilliant.
I am supported through Seth and his team in Chicago, but I can manage it here and look after the day-to-day running of it from Ireland. Brilliant. That has meant that they now have a stable American business with a credit insurance policy specific to that entity, and it's much more fluid, much simpler for them. And the Irish team don't have to be as involved in that side of things as much as possible. The American team look after it more. That's been a massive. That's an example of what we do. But
yes,
like if I think about the Germans and the Polish, the Russian, the Germans, the Dutch, Brazil, Singapore, Mexicans, like we're all over the world. So who knows what the next problem I have might be solved by the Farasol network. So that's why we're members. We're one of the founding members. And actually I was voted in as a member of the executive board in May at a Rome event this year, which is a great honor as well. I was delighted to have that. So it's a great bunch of people and professional group, and but also a really, really nice group of people as well to work with, and to have that ability to pick up the phone or drop an email to somebody to get an answer for a question that I just don't know, and they will. So
look, cooperation works for everybody. So in terms of the insurance, then who are the main players in Ireland?
There's a number of insurers operating through Ireland and or the UK. So the primary ones, I suppose, names would be known in our sector would be Atradius, Coface, Allianz Trade, who were formerly Euler Hermes, and a name change recently. They're the main three. Then Tokyo Marine, HCC would probably be coming up behind that. AIG, Credendo, Chubb, QBE, Nexus. Like there's a number out there. They each offer different options. And the three I mentioned, Atradius, Coface, and Allianz Trade, very similar in their initial offerings, but they would all have nuances and differences that would be special for different sectors. They would all say they're experts in certain fields. They would all say they're the best or the biggest, but no matter what way you look at it, any policy in general can be tailored to a client's trade requirements. So there's a basic policy structure, and then you have add-ons that make sure it works out. Whether they're an importer, a wholesale, transport business, every sector can be catered for, even recruitment. Then there's a little clause that matches up with everybody, whether it's higher.
And that's where your advice and expertise is so valuable to credit guys to
there's no point having there's no point having a construction policy and you have 5% retentions on your construction debt and you're not covered for that retention. You need to know that you have to have a policy that covers that piece. Exactly.
Of course, and we don't know. So in terms of credit insurance, a lot of the objection is it costs too much, or it's going to cost an arm and a leg. So how does it get priced, or what way does that work?
I suppose, and that's part of the reason why we're in the Farasol network, is because we can keep an eye on global pricing, so that we don't feel like we're being paying higher prices in Ireland just because we're a small island. So that's part of that Farasol connection helps. We can see what's going on in the Netherlands, for example, which is an established, slightly cheaper market. So we have a bit of knowledge there, which helps. suppose the level of credit sales expected in a policy period is the primary driver. So that's the estimated insurable turnover. So what what you intend to sell in the year ahead on credit, right? That level of turnover. That's the key driver. After that, it's the bad debt levels or claims if you're already insured. So bad debt levels that you've had in recent years. On a questionnaire, we generally go back 3, maybe 4 years to see what's the volume of bad debts in monetary terms, but also in number of bad debts. The buyers and their credit limits is the next driver. So if you think of it, so turnover, bad debts, and then so if you've got only 50 debtors and the top 5 are complete outliers, they're in the like hundreds of thousands or millions or whatever way is an outlier to your debtor book.
Yeah.
They're the ones that matter. So you take the top 5 or 10 buyers and the level of exposure that you might have, whether it's 3 months or 4 months of exposure. So if your credit terms 30 days end a month, it might be another 30 days or 60 days before somebody clears that debt. You have to be insured for that period. And so that would be the next driver. However, there are some customers we will have who have 6 or 7 buyers covered, and that's all they have insured. They don't have their whole debtor book covered.
Yeah.
And then there's some customers we have who have 1 debtor insured. So there's a suite of options. So pricing can depend on that. But generally it's turnover, bad debts, and then the main buyers and the level of exposure you have to those buyers and the risk factor of those buyers and the country they're in. So it could be an A-rated company, but they're in Venezuela. So the country risk has an issue. But they could be a C-rated country in France, and they could have the same risk level. So it just depends. But at that point, I suppose we try to tailor to make sure that there's a reasonable pricing done. Like if somebody is expecting a premium and it comes in at twice that, there are factors to move, whether it's the excess. There's always something you can do to try and manage expectations on premium.
Yeah. Well, for me, and when I was sitting in the credit manager's desk, the one thing I always said, credit insurance helped me to sleep at night. That was for the benefit for me, and having access to information that was beyond.
What's the price of a good night's sleep, Tech?
It's invaluable.
Yeah.
And the sleep was personal, and the insurance premium was paid by the company. So like that was a no-brainer from my perspective. But anyway,
especially if you think about exporting companies as well. If you're exporting like outside the OECD or far-flung countries, like we have one customer who sells live crab from Canada to China, like vast differences in the type of countries he's selling to all over Europe. Like how can you make a decision to sell to that company in China without the assistance of his credit insurer? Like, you go and meet them for coffee? He can't. So he has to have some support to say, well, I want to send 100,000 euros to crab to China. So who has to support that information? So it's invaluable to some people.
Absolutely. So how does a business check out their options?
It's a simple process through, as I mentioned, an excellent specialist broker like credit risk brokers. Any terms for a policy is easy enough, right? So simple 1-pager questionnaire that we fill in with the client, or they fill it in for us. It has the main buyers on it, which I mentioned a minute ago, the credit terms that they offer. It has your bad debt records, the turnover over the last 3 years. It has the estimated turnover level for the year ahead in credit sales. It's fairly simple, straightforward questionnaire. Debtor spread. So where does your debtors fall? If they're all under 10,000 euros, or are they all above 100,000 euros? That bit of information is in the questionnaire. Very simple stuff. It's a 1-pager. Most companies fill it out in half an hour, if they have the information available to them. One point I should mention is credit insurance can be assigned to an invoice discounter. So if you've got a funder who's funding your invoices or your debtor book, you can have that in the background, and that can be claims can be paid out to them instead of you. So some lenders will find this as obviously a strong factor when they're deciding whether they're going to lend you €1 million against your debtor book. Then if it's insured, they'll feel much more comfortable about that. And it's grown again more recently since COVID that those funders, those invoice discounters, are contacting us, the broker, every month with the permission of the client to provide them with the updated version of the limit listing of the insured debtors, so they can make sure they're marked off as insured. So it's becoming much more important over recent months.
Brilliant. Okay, and any final words?
Um, Credit insurance, by its nature, is designed to provide a peace of mind. That sleeping at night that you mentioned, information, bad debt protection. As I said earlier on, not the primary point. It can also provide structure and guidance to your credit function, your credit team. Um, it
Yeah.
can reduce your debtor days, improve cash for your business. Um, Look, you insure your premises, your stock, your vehicles, for public liability. Your debtor book can be one of the most valuable assets on your balance sheet. Why is it not credit insured? I have no idea. Um, if you have credit insurance already and you don't have a specialist broker like credit risk brokers, I have no idea why you haven't called us. Yeah, that's probably the best little pitch at the end, Declan.
So you have to get the sales pitch in, all right. Absolutely. And the one thing and you said it earlier as well, in terms of that the take-up rate for credit insurance in Ireland is internationally low. And I can never understand that. And I am talking to credit professionals all the time. Part of our job in credit is to find a way to deliver every order. That's always the challenge I give credit guys. That's your job. And credit insurance is a way that we can do, not totally risk-free, but 90% of the risk is free. Um, it just makes so much sense. And then by adjusting the policy through excesses and all that kind of stuff, it just from a risk mitigation perspective, to me, is one of the greatest tools. So look, I'm a fan. I've been singing the praises, so that's that. Talking to credit professionals, and look, thanks a million, James, for coming on board and explaining it to us, and Farasol and everything else.
Thank you, Declan. We appreciate it. And it's great to have any old excuse to talk about credit insurance and
Yeah, we're sure,
parasol as well. Yeah.
credit people, like talking credit. And to the audience out there, I'd certainly like to thank you for staying till the end. Hopefully you picked up something that will be of benefit to you from a business perspective. Part of the reason for our conversation here today and the whole launching of this Excellence in Credit is to do with the Irish Credit Team Awards that's been running now for a number of years, to recognise the great work being done by credit teams around the world. And James and Credit Risk Brokers are sponsors of the Domestic Credit Team of the Year.
Every year.
So, and we appreciate your support there, James, as well. So for any of you who don't know, the application process is free. You just click, there's a link somewhere up or down. I'm not sure where it'll be when it gets to it. You can get a form, apply for your team to become the credit team of the year. We've a panel of judges who will adjudicate, create a shortlist, and then on the 15th of November, we'll present the awards in the Royal Marine Hotel in Dunleary. And it's a great day, and it's been getting better all the time. So hopefully, James, you have a worthy team to present the Domestic Credit Team of the Year to. And if you're listening and you want to take part, by all means, contact us, reach out. We're here to help. James, thank you very much indeed. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Declan. Thanks, guys, for listening.
Welcome.
Bye.
Take care. Bye bye.